Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you as always for taking time out of your day to watch the videos. I really appreciate all of the continued support. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and discuss in this video. So before we dive into these topics, do me a big favor and hit that like button to help the video out and show your support. And if you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. The first topic we're going over is something very interesting that I feel like a lot of people might not have noticed, so it's something I really want to be sure to highlight because not only do I think it's really good news for Spider-Man 2 and Insomniac Games and PlayStation Studios as a whole, but it continues to highlight what is very important to Sony, what Sony considers a top priority, that being the acquisition of not just studios, but more so talent. This is something we've been discussing ever since we heard that Sony was acquiring Bungie. I think that some people were a little bit confused as to why Sony went after Bungie specifically and why they paid so much money, why they set aside nearly $1.2 billion to retain Bungie employees. It's due to talent. Sony wants to make sure that they are retaining as many talented developers as they can while also continuing to acquire more talent. It's not just about acquiring studios. It's certainly not just about acquiring entire publishers and IP. It's also about acquiring what I would consider the most important thing, talented developers to make your games. Because if you want your games to be good, if you want your games to be world-class, you're gonna need some serious talent making these games. I mean, I think we all know that, but I want to go over to Mark Diaz on Twitter. He announced on February 4th, "Today is my last day at id Software. I'll always deeply treasure my time here and the lifelong friendships that have come with it. The last 8 years have been a literal dream come true. I'm excited to experience all their future games as a fan. New adventure starts Monday." Now, on Monday, he took to Twitter to say, "Today, I started my new job as a lead gameplay programmer on Spider-Man 2 at Insomniac Games." And this tweet gained a lot of traction, which I think is good because people are starting to pay attention to how serious Sony is about obtaining more talent across the industry and bring them into PlayStation Studios. For anybody wondering, Mark Diaz was the lead gameplay or the senior gameplay programmer over at id Software. So it was a very significant role that he filled, and he went over to Insomniac and he's clearly happy and excited to work on Spider-Man 2. And it's definitely a big get for Sony, a big get for Insomniac Games. And it just makes me all the more excited to finally see some gameplay of Spider-Man 2. And I just think that this is, again, something that is certainly worth highlighting and talking about because during a time when there's so much discussion about acquisitions, which ironically enough, the next topic does focus on that, but it's just the nature of how things are right now. We're going to be talking about acquisitions. We're going to be talking about who's buying who, but we also need to pay close attention to industry talent and where it's going and how much of a priority this is for Sony. Because believe me when I tell you, if there's one thing that is at the top of Sony's list before acquiring new studios, acquisitions of publishers or IP, it's acquiring talent. So there you go. Mark Diaz, now part of Insomniac Games. And he did clarify on Twitter that he's not the lead gameplay programmer, because I think that's how I worded it on Twitter. He is just one of many lead gameplay programmers that are working on Spider-Man 2. We know Insomniac is a massive studio, so I don't doubt that, but still a lot of talented developers over there working on Spider-Man 2 to make sure that we all love it when it drops. But we are now moving on to the next topic, which I think is just as interesting. We have an interesting write-up from Push Square where the title says, "Sony more likely than Microsoft to acquire a Japanese game company, Analyst explains." So it says video game consultant and writer Nathan Brown has penned a very informative article on the subject of overseas companies acquiring Japanese businesses with the help of Japanese gaming industry analyst Sirkin Todo. The article outlines why a Japanese firm like Sony would be a front runner in buying other Japanese companies and why Microsoft can't simply waltz in and acquire whatever it wants. We're obviously not going to copy and paste the whole article here, but the gist of it is that Japanese businesses tend to do things differently. Generally speaking, Japanese companies aren't keen on being bought up, with mergers like Square Enix and Koei Tecmo being much more common. Additionally, hostile takeovers are pretty much viewed as bad business from top to bottom. Toto explains hostile takeovers are generally considered the antithesis of the Japanese way of doing business and almost always a very bad idea. A foreign entity taking over a publicly traded studio against its own will, everybody would leave instantly. I would bet my house this would not happen ever. Basically, it would be a big pain for Microsoft to seal the deal on any Japanese company. He continues, Sony, of course, has the home field advantage, and some of the challenges that would come up for Microsoft would not apply to Sony. Toto even concludes with, dare we say, a bit of a tease, it doesn't have to be one of the publicly traded powerhouses, but I believe Sony is at least considering making a move in Japan soon. It is also worth noting that he also said that nothing can be ruled out in this day and age. So he doesn't want to say definitively that there's absolutely no way Microsoft could ever acquire a big Japanese publisher, but the likelihood of that is very, very low. But it's also interesting to hear what this analyst has to say, because not only is he making it clear that it would be much, much easier for Sony to acquire a Japanese entity or a Japanese game publisher or a Japanese studio, but he also goes on to say that he thinks Sony is likely going to make some kind of move, and soon. Now, he doesn't have inside information, obviously. This is just him giving his best guess as an analyst as to what he thinks is going to happen, but I do think that this would make sense. We know that Sony is willing to do things a little bit differently now than maybe they were before, because of how quickly and rapidly consolidation is happening and how things are changing. And so I would not be completely shocked if Sony announced in the future that they ended up acquiring a big Japanese studio or possibly even a publisher. I think that it would cause quite the conversation, just like it does when Microsoft acquires a big entity and just like when Sony bought Bungie. So there you go. That is what we're hearing from one analyst. And so at this point, I'm going to be interested to hear what you guys have to say in the comments below. What do you think about what they're saying? Do you think that Sony is likely to make a move on a Japanese game company? Let me know. The next topic we have to talk about focuses on Deviation Games. We seemingly have our first details on what to expect with this upcoming PlayStation 5 title. This is reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, where they say Twitter user OopsLeaks, who has previously earned a reputation for accurate leaks and reports, claims that Deviation Games' upcoming PlayStation 5 exclusive shooter will have a narrative-heavy single-player campaign alongside multiplayer. Deviation is comprised of industry veterans with expertise in multiplayer shooters and is led by former Call of Duty lead Jason Blundell. The studio announced a partnership with Sony Interactive Entertainment in June last year, but didn't reveal what it's working on. However, job descriptions pointed towards a multiplayer shooter. According to OopsLeaks, the ambitious project is still in early development and is expected to release sometime in 2024. It should be revealed within a year. Apparently, Deviation is working on a world-class first-person shooter that will be supported for years, if not generations, and will feature both arcade and competitive modes. OopsLeaks further claims that the game will come with many modes, but considering it's still in early phases of development, things can change. So I wanted to be sure to cover this for you guys, because we've been hearing more from this Twitter user who goes by the name OopsLeaks, which always feels weird to say. But this individual has proven to be reliable, and honestly, everything they're saying about Deviation Games and their upcoming shooter sounds true. It sounds very believable. This actually sounds exactly like what I was expecting Deviation Games' first game to be, based off of not only job listings, but just the way that Jason Blundell described what they're aiming for. And I think a lot of people are going to be very happy to hear that apparently there is a single player campaign that is planned for this game. This is one of the big concerns that many PlayStation fans have with a lot of these upcoming partnership games, as well as some games that are coming from PlayStation Studios that seem to have a heavy emphasis on multiplayer. Is there going to be any type of single player whatsoever? At least with Deviation Games, if this leak is to be believed, there will be a single player. And that makes sense because, again, these are former Call of Duty developers, veteran Call of Duty developers, and if you played past Call of Duties, or even if you still play Call of Duty, you'll know that more often than not, I think there was actually one exception, they do have a single player campaign alongside the multiplayer offering. So yeah, definitely good news there. I'm certainly eager to see this game in action, learn more about it, and I really kind of want to get a feel if, is this going to be the next big thing, right? Because I feel like that's what they're going for. I guess we'll find out within the next year. But moving on from that, we are talking about SIFU. I'm really enjoying my time with this game. It's a very tough game, but I do have some gameplay up of me playing it and pretty much getting whooped. But I am seriously enjoying this game, and it is pretty much everything I hoped it would be. We do have an update from the developer, though, that lets us know we shouldn't expect any multiplayer updates, but they do have plans for post-launch content. Speaking with Gaming Bolt, the studio's marketing manager was asked if there's any chance of multiplayer support being added. This was his response: SIFU will remain single player only. We are an independent studio with limited means, and we wanted the team to focus on creating an immersive and distinctive single player experience. We do have additional content planned for post-launch, though. And it's also worth reiterating that there were some issues at launch for the deluxe edition where the game could not be downloaded for quite some time, and players were getting pretty annoyed by this because you paid extra to get 48-hour early access, and that 48 hours was whittled down quite significantly. And so the developer Slowclap has apologized for this. Obviously they didn't want that to happen and they didn't anticipate that, but they did reassure everybody, those of us who did buy the digital deluxe edition, that they are going to make it up for us and they're going to have something for us specifically. So I will be sure to update you guys when we learn what that is. But I'm also very interested in what these post-launch plans are, because SIFU is a game that, as I said, I really am kind of addicted to. I can't stop playing it. It is extremely tough, but I just love this game, and I'm assuming I'll beat it at some point eventually. And when I do, if they have more content, then I'm definitely going to want to play it. So yeah, let me know if you've been playing SIFU, and if you have, let me know what you think of it. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Once again, be sure to leave it a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave your thoughts down below. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.